Good morning. Good day, everyone. Today, we shall be discussing about language acquisition versus language learning. Let us first have a short uh, glance of what is this language acquisition and language learning. Actually, at first glance, guys, acquiring a language and learning one might sound like the same thing. But in linguistics, most notably popularized by theories by Krashen, Stephen Krashen, they represent two fundamental different cognitive processes. And we call it as, if we're going to break it down, okay? So the difference now of language acquisition and language learning. Okay, let's have another slide here. So the distinction between language acquisition and language learning represent one of the most fundamental concept in modern linguistics. And second, language acquisition theory, primarily popularized by, of course, as I mentioned a while ago, by a linguist, Stephen Krashen. Okay. So when we speak of language acquisition, it has something to do with the subconscious process. This is the natural initiative way we develop language skills. Think of how a child pick, picks up their native tongue. Okay. It happens through immersive meaningful communication and exposure without any formal focus on grammatical rules. The emphasis here is the entirely on understanding and being understood. That's for language acquisition. How about for language learning? If the other one, guys, is subconscious, something to do with subconscious process, this time in language learning, we're dealing with our consciousness, the conscious process this time. It has something to do with the conscious process. So this is somewhat, this is the formal, structured approach to mastering a language. Okay. So it typically takes place in a classroom setting where the focus actually is on explicit instruction, memorizing vocabulary, uh, studying grammar rules, and analyzing sentence structure. That's language learning. Okay, so why do we need to have that kind of distinction? Because as we said here in my slide, the distinction between language acquisition and language learning. Uh, there's a boundary, of course. So understanding the boundary between acquisition and learning is a crucial or very crucial for educators and students like us. While learning gives you the structure, rules, and technical knowledge, guys, of a language, acquisition is what ultimately grants true fluency and the ability to speak spontaneously and naturally. Okay, so that's the distinction. Now, let's have now the, okay, let's add more. to this distinction. Okay, because this is according to uh, Stephen Krashen's, no? And let me give you an idea of some of those perception, okay, ideas of Stephen Krashen about this. Actually, Krashen argued that adults have two distinct, independent ways of developing competence in a second language. The first one is what we call the acquired system. So, what is this acquired system? This is the product of a subconscious process, very similar to the way children allocate their first language. It requires meaningful interaction in the target language, natural, no, it is natural communication, where speakers are concentrated not on the form of their utterances, but on the message they are conveying. So it just comes naturally now when they talk, when they express themselves. No? Here, another thing that we need to understand in the concept of crashing is that the learned system. This is now the product of formal instruction. It's a conscious process that results in knowing about the language, such as knowledge of grammatical rules, syntax, and explicit vocabulary definition. So, okay. So, an essential part of explaining this concept, guys, is understanding how these two systems interact. So, according to Krashen, learning does not turn into acquisition. Instead, the language we consciously learn only serve as a monitor or an editor. Okay? So when we speak or write a second language, the utterance is initiated by your acquired system spontaneously. So you learn system only steps into correct or polish the about the I mean the output before or after you speak, provided you have enough time, of course, focus on form and actually, no, not only form, but actually you should know the rule. So for language teachers and curriculum developers like us, this concept completely shifts the approach to instruction. Since fluency comes from the acquired system, classroom should therefore maximize exposure to comprehensible input, language that is just slightly above the learner's current level through immersive course, engaging and communicative activities. So when we say communicative activities, we are really helping our children to express their ideas, their perspective, no? Um, without any forced, no? It will just be coming naturally from them, wherein they could express their ideas and feelings and emotions inside the classroom. That's why what kind of approach are we going to use here? We're going to use communicative approach. So the other one is rethinking error of correction. So over correcting grammar errors can raise, of course, students' anxiety. So if they already have this kind of thinking that they might be checked because their grammar is wrong, okay, they might not recite anymore, and they will be afraid to express themselves. Okay, so that's it. Okay, the other one, that's the difference now between language acquisition and language learning. Okay, next, we have here. Okay, because okay, let me add on to what I mentioned a while ago. So since they are conscious about their error, okay, because they might be corrected with the grammar thing, and this could bring them anxiety, and they will no longer express themselves freely in our discussions, right? So they'll have this kind of anxiety, as I mentioned. So formal learning and strict rule of enforcement are secondary now to creating a comfortable environment where students can naturally absorb the language. So as a professor of English, okay, so what are you going to do for them to express themselves freely without thinking of the grammar thing? Okay, because if you have to inject uh, the grammar rules, they might be afraid because of you might, of course, you might correct them at once. But if you use the communicative approach, just let them to express themselves freely, and then little by little correcting their grammar. I think it would be better. Okay, let them first express themselves so that they could participate in any classroom activities rather than injecting at once the grammar rule. Okay, then let's have another slide. The here we have the core differences. What are the features? We have to take note of the process, the focus, the knowledge, environment, and the role of error. So under the features, we have to take note the difference between language acquisition and language learning. I already mentioned this, no? Language acquisition is something to do with the subconscious and intuitive of intuitive happens naturally through exposure for language learning. Here, conscious and structured happens through formal instruction. For focus, under language acquisition, we have here meaning and communication, understanding the message. While for the language learning, we have form rules, understanding grammar, syntax, and mechanics. Okay, so look at this one, process. That's under process. This subconscious and intuitive process, it mimics the effortless way native speaker develop their first language through conscious exposure and immersion. Unlike in the language learning, since it is conscious and structured process, it relies now on intentional effort intentional effort, formal instruction, and active study to internalize the language. For the focus, we have their meaning and communication, understanding the message. And for the language learning, we have their form, rules, understanding grammar, syntax, and mechanics. So you look at language acquisition. The primary focus here is on meaning and communication, right, guys? So the learner's main goal here is simply to understand the message and make themselves understood, prioritizing functional communication over technical perspective. Unlike in the other one, which is language learning, what is our focus? Is look at the slide. Form and rules, understanding grammar, syntax, and mechanics. So learners here concentrate. on understanding grammar, syntax, sentence mechanics, and correct form. So they they will be conscious of the use of the grammar, including the mechanics. Okay? Now, let's go to another feature, which is knowledge. Under language acquisition, you look at the template. It says there implicit knowledge. The speaker feels what is right without necessarily knowing the technical rule. Okay? So it's just normal for them to express themselves. Okay? Just normal, a natural conversation. Okay? What else? That's under knowledge. Okay? Implicit knowledge. So a speaker here develops an internal feel for what sounds right or wrong in a conversation, even if they cannot explicitly state the linguistic rule behind it. Unlike in the language learning, guys, if the other one is implicit, we have here explicit in the language learning. Explicit knowledge. The learner can state the rule but may hesitate to apply it in conversation. So the results in explicit knowledge, the learner can easily recite a grammar rule or conjugate a verb on paper, but they often experience mental delay or hesitation when trying to apply that rule smoothly in real-time conversation. So there is that hesitation because it's not just like the other one. They just talk. It's a free will. They talk naturally. Here they have that kind of thinking that they are, of course, they're afraid that their grammar might be wrong. Okay. So next, environment. Okay. Another feature is environment. Under language acquisition, we have their natural, immersive setting. And what's the example here? A child learning a first language or an immigrant picking up a local tongue. Okay, so what do we mean by this one? Okay, under environment. So we have here environment, language acquisition first. So thrives in natural immersive setting. So classic examples, guys, include a young child picking up the first language at home, okay? Or an immigrant naturally observing a local tongue by living a new country. And here in the language learning, we have their formal classroom textbook grammar drills and vocabulary. Okay? So typically, in the learning or in language learning, typically occurs in formal classrooms. It is heavily reliant on the following, as it mentioned here, reliant on textbooks. What else? Organized grammar drills, worksheets, and vocabulary list given by their teachers. And for the last feature, we have the role of error. Errors are a natural part of development and gradually correct themselves over time. Under language acquisition. In language learning, errors here are often pointed out and corrected immediately to prevent bad habits. Okay, so I hope you could follow my explanation to this. So let me discuss this further. So if you try to look at the template or the presentation here, language acquisition. Errors are natural part of development and gradually correct themselves over time. So here, errors are viewed as a natural, healthy part of development. So it's okay if you commit error, it's okay to be corrected. So just as children make speech mistakes, As they grow, language acquirers gradually self-correct over time through continued exposure to natural communication. Unlike in the language learning, guys, look at it. Errors are often pointed out and corrected immediately to prevent bad habits. So errors here are often pointed out and corrected immediately. The traditional pedagogical belief here is that immediate correction prevents bad habits from forming, though it can sometimes increase a students' anxiety because they might be ashamed because they will be corrected at once. Okay, so that's it. That's the difference between language acquisition and language learning. Okay, next, let's have the other one here. Okay, to truly understand, guys, to truly understand how this two processes interact, we can have we have to look at how they function in human brain and how they shape the way a person actually speaks. While we treat them as separate paths, they constantly cross paths in practical use. Okay? So let's have first the cognitive in this slide. Cognitive split. So what's the difference between implicit versus explicit memory? So the operational difference between between acquiring and learning a language comes down to how our brains store information. Under this, we have the acquisition utilizes implicit procedural memory. And then this is the same. Now, the same memory system used for riding a bicycle or playing an instrument. So you do not consciously think about which muscle to move next. Your brain executes the action automatically. When you acquire a language, you internalize its structural patterns. A native speaker knows a sentence sounds wrong if they cannot name the specific rule being violated. Okay. Next to that is what we call learning utilizes explicit declarative memory. This is the memory system used for facts, dates, and intellectual data. When you memorize conjugation tables or vocabulary lists, you are storing declarative data. To speak using the system, your brain must actively retrieve the rule, apply it to words, check the exemptions, and then produce the sound. This causes the classic mental translation lag. So based on this slide, guys, it gives us now the distinction between language acquisition and language learning. Okay? So while acquisition and learning are often discussed as theoretical concepts in linguistics, the text emphasizes that they are physically handled by these two completely different memory systems in the human brain. We have here, I've mentioned already, the acquisition utilizes implicit, which is procedural memory, and the other one is learning utilizes explicit declarative memory. So let me discuss this further. Implicit procedural memory. How does it work? This is the memory now, memory system responsible for automatic unconscious unconscious habits. Like for example, I have given you a while ago riding a bicycle. So riding a bike, swimming, or playing an instrument. So how are we going to apply this to language? Okay? So when you acquire, just for example, a language, m- much like a child picks up their first language, you internalize its structural patterns naturally through exposure and meaningful interaction. And what would be the result? There will be fluency. Fluency feels automatic. A native speaker can immediately tell if the sentence sounds wrong or natural, even if they cannot explicitly name or explain the specific grammatical wrong, grammatical rule being broken in that one. Okay, so it just an automatic feeling. Okay, while the other one is learning utilizes explicit. I mentioned it's about declarative memory. So how does it work? This memory system, guys, handles conscious facts of data and intellectual rules like memorizing historical dates or math formula. No, most of us, no, we're not good in. I'm not good in math, even even memorizing dates. No? Okay, so what would be the application here? This happens when you explicitly study a language, such as memorizing vocabulary, lists, verb, conjugation tables, or formal grammar structures. And the result, guys, is speaking using this system requires a high cognitive, of course, high cognitive load to formulate the sentence. Our brain must, of course, actively stop, retrieve the abstract rule. So apply it to the words, check for if there are irregular exemptions, and then produce the sound. So this heavy conscious processing causes now the classic mental translation lag, often experienced by classroom language learners. Okay, next. Let's have the no interface. Okay, then no, okay, wait, let me add more to the explicit memory and implicit. So explicit memory, okay, you look at that one, the graphics here, depicts a person sitting at a desk. You look at the picture, straining, thinking hard, and calculation focus symbolizing conscious, effortful rule application. Okay? While the other one is explicit memory, while the other one, implicit memory, depicts a person relaxing, right? Effortless, listening to music or speaking, symbolizing natural and automated fluency. Okay, so that's the meaning of the illustration there. And then let's have the no interface position. Okay, let's have this. So one of the most deliberated topics in second language acquisition is whether conscious learning can ever turn into automatic acquisition. So here, linguists like Krashen argue for the strict no interface position. So what is his theory? He states that learned knowledge and acquired knowledge are stored in completely different areas of the brain, and the former can never transform into the latter. According to this view, doing thousands of grammar drills will make you excellent at grammar tests, but it will not make you speak spontaneously. Fluency can only be achieved through continuous exposure to comprehensible output messages, you understand. You have to practice, of course, no, the language, the use of the language. Well, the other one, okay, let us discuss this further. Modern cognitive adjustment learn toward a weak interface position, suggesting that explicit learning can act as a scaffolding tool. By consciously learning a rule, a person becomes more aware of it when they hear it is real conversation, which accelerates the natural acquisition process. Okay, so again, this is the theory of Stephen Krashen. Okay, and his position here, he argues that knowledge or learned knowledge, explicit rules, and acquired knowledge, which is the implicit fluency, are stored in completely separate compartments of the brain. So you try to imagine, no, your brain. So there's a separation, okay, between explicit and implicit. Okay, so learned knowledge can never transform into acquired knowledge. They are completely separate tracks. So doing thousands of repetitive grammar drills will make a student excellent, of course. Constant practice makes perfect, right? So passing grammar tests. But of course, it won't help them speak spontaneously in a real world conversation. So it's a different thing. It doesn't mean that you're good in grammar, you're already fluent or effective, you're already an effective communicator, or you already have that fluency in the use of the language. Okay, so I mentioned a while ago there's a separation between the two. Even though how good you are in grammar, sometimes no, you could not have everything. You're good in grammar, but you could not really have, you're not a good conversant. You could not really express yourself. So fluency can only be achieved through continuous, meaningful exposure to comprehensible input, messages, readings, conversations that the learner actually understand. When you use the language, guys, uh, I know for sure if you always using the language, especially English, no? If you constant practice makes perfect. If you use the language oftentimes, even in a simple conversation that you have, definitely you will become fluent. Okay. Plus, you could be an effective communicator. And of course, fluency will be yours, of course. No, you'll be fluent enough. Okay, because you also know how to use the right grammar. Okay, so here, guys, we have there, I forgot, let me remove this one. Okay, I added another slide. Okay, so let's have the other one. Okay, wait, no interface. So we have their weak interface position. So this represents a more modern cognitive adjustment to Krashen. Okay? While explicit learning doesn't directly turn into fluency, it acts as a powerful scaffolding tool, as I mentioned a while ago. So when a student consciously learns specific grammar rule in class, it acts like a mental spotlight. So the next time they hear that structure used naturally in real conversation or video, their brain instantly recognizes it and notices it. So this conscious awareness now, guys, actively accelerates and feeds the natural acquisition process, bringing the gap between formal study and spontaneous study. Okay, let's move on to the natural order of acquisition. Okay, let me read to you the slide. A fascinating piece of evidence supporting language acquisition is natural order hypothesis. Research shows that learners of a specific language tend to acquire grammatical structure in a highly predictable linear sequence, regardless of their native tongue or order in which their teacher introduces the topic. For example, an English language learner will always or almost always naturally acquire the progressive ing as in walking long before they rela- reliably master the third person singular as in he walks. So in a learning environment, a teacher might introduce both in the same week. In the brain's internal acquisition schedule, the third person S requires a high learner level of cognitive linguistic maturity to internalize automatically, meaning force structure often yields minimal long-term result until the learner is naturally ready. Okay? So, were you able to pick it up, guys? Okay. I hope you could understand this. Okay. So I mentioned their hypothesis. So the hypothesis here states that learners acquire grammatical structure in a highly predictable linear sequence. So this internal order remains the same again, guys, regardless of the student's native tongue or the sequence in which a teacher decides to introduce the rules. Teaching a complex structure early doesn't mean the brain will internalize it early. So it's not always at once, no? The internalization is not always at once, no? It takes time sometimes also. So an English learner will almost always naturally acquire the progressive ing ending, like walking very early on. And then that same learner will struggle also to reliably master the third person singular as marker. He walks until much later. Okay, so here a teacher might introduce both progressive ing and third person s in seem like basic beginner level concepts on paper. In reality, the third person s requires a much higher level of cognitive and linguistic maturity to internalize automatically. So because of this gap, guys, forced instruction yields minimal long-term results. Okay, next. I think this is the last one. The last one would be balancing both the modern classroom. So what do we have right now in our classroom? This is something to do with the traditional type of approach and the modern type of approach that we have right now in teaching. No, of course, since we are in the 21st century, we teachers has to adapt the changes, no, do something with the kind of delivery that we have. So it says there the goal is to design a space where students use the language to solve real problems, read engaging stories or debate ideas, uh, driving accusation while the teacher gently highlights structure patterns or provide explicit feedback, utilizing learning as a supportive tool. Okay? So the core of the lesson focuses on active immersive tasks. So students use the target language as a live tool to solve real world problems. Read engaging stories of debate complex ideas, So this mirrors the natural acquisition environment by prioritizing meaningful communication and comprehensible input. So rather than letting students flounder on drill mindlessly, the teacher gently highlights structural patterns or provides explicit feedback. Okay, so this approach, guys, no, perfectly bridges the gap we look at the earlier slides by keeping the main focus on communication. Okay, so it's a very different right now because we are in the 21st century. So therefore, we have to adapt the changes so that we could meet all the needs of our learners. That's why you look at the picture there, no? Look at how the students really use the gadget, no? And the gadget was used to enhance learning and also for them to be engaged in the activity. Okay, so balancing both in the modern classroom. So there are a lot of ways in teaching the language, a lot of strategies and methods that of course that would encourage our students to learn more, to participate in our discussion and do the activities that we have inside the classroom. So that's it, guys. This will be discussed further in our face-to-face meet up next time. So that's it. Again, good day to all.